Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 4, and today we're taking a look at the 1962 Triumph Spitfire. Now this was produced between 1962 and 1980, and it was designed by Giovanni Michelotti. And this Mark I version was produced between 1962 and 1964, with nearly 46,000 built. Overall, the Triumph Spitfire sold more than 314,000 in those 18 years, so it's a huge success for Triumph. And it was based on the mechanicals of the Triumph Herald, which was a small saloon, and yeah, it also included the chassis, because the Herald was based on a separate chassis. So all Triumph had to do was grind the chassis down, take the bodywork off, and put this new body on. So it made it very inexpensive to build, and that also made it an inexpensive car to actually buy, because it was designed to be inexpensive from the start. And you can tell that by the interior, because there's very little in here that's you could call a creature comfort. There's not even a glove box, but it's you know, at least got a decent sized boot, and it also had roll down windows and external locks. So had a couple of creature comforts, but nowhere near the kind you'd expect on a luxury car. But then again, this isn't supposed to be. It's cheap, it's inexpensive, it's easy to run, and it's easy to maintain, which is also emphasised by this one sheet of metal for the front, which means that you can get into the engine very easily. You can even get down to the suspension if you really wanted. And yeah, the engine is quite small, but it's got a decent amount of power. 1.1 litre inline 4 engine, producing 63 horsepower and 67 pounds-feet of torque. So yeah, modest amount of power there, but it's a very small engine, so it's very economical and again easy to maintain. And yeah, the basic trim included rubber mats and a large plastic steering wheel. All of this inexpense though did at least have one advantage. It made it very light. It only weighs 1,828 pounds, and yeah, it was designed to compete with the Austin Healey Sprite. Now the Sprite, granted, is lighter than this car, but this car has better looks, it's got better performance, and it's more practical, because the Sprite didn't even have a boot lid. Sure, you could get into the boot by folding the seats forward, but no boot lid meant it was a lot harder to get to the lights of the spare wheel and actually get luggage in and out. So yeah, this car is very practical, very inexpensive, and actually fairly fun to drive. But it did get into some criticism back in the day, as its rear suspension did induce some oversteer when it was driven quite hard. Luckily that's something that we're not going to have to deal with on this game, so let's get out there and see what it can do. So yeah, lightweight, not much in the way of power, but that kind of offsets one from the other, to be honest. So yeah, that lightweight means you can make the most of that 63 horsepower. Now this wasn't the most powerful version of the Spitfire, but personally I think this is a good balance between looks, lightweightness and decent amount of power, because the 70s versions, for instance, even though they had bigger engines, were completely restricted by emissions control. So might well have had a bigger engine, but they necessarily didn't have all that much more power, and they were certainly heavier as well. But yeah, this is modest in terms of acceleration. 0 to 60 is 16.5 seconds, 0 to 100 in 2 minutes 4 seconds at 0.037 seconds, and yeah, it will do 104 miles an hour. So not brilliant in terms of 0 to 100 time, but it gets to 60 fairly competently. Certainly gets up to 70, which is obviously the limit in the UK. So yeah, perfectly reasonable in terms of that kind of speed, and it far outclasses the Sprite, as that was like 4.4 seconds slower to 60 and could only do 89 miles an hour. So yeah, this is far better than what Austin Healey could come up with, and obviously was far more popular as well, selling, like I said, more than 314,000 units, which is a huge amount, especially for a car, like I said, was very basic in terms of what it was offering. Not much power, not much in terms of luxury, but I guess that was kind of appealing, really, not to have something that was not only really expensive but also probably quite expensive to maintain, whereas obviously with this, with its small engine and lack of interior trim, made it easy in both fronts to keep going, quite frankly. So yeah, really glad this is in the game. This was a barn find, so yeah, you're gonna have to hunt for this by playing through the game by a fair bit to unlock that barn find, but it's well worth it because it's a fun little sports car, just like plenty of other sports cars that I've seen on this game so far, or reviewed on this game, like the MGB GT for instance. While this isn't anywhere near as quick as that car, it is pretty much better looking as far as I'm concerned, and because it is lighter, it's even more fun just to throw around these long winding corners that you have on these roads out in the countryside. So yeah, fun car, and it again goes alongside the TR3B as another Triumph on this game. Though unlike that Triumph, this was never in a previous Forza game, so yeah, to have a new Triumph in a Forza game is always a good thing as far as I'm concerned, and I would really like it if they brought more Triumphs to the game, because though they had a, you know, not the best productions in terms of certain cars. The Triumph Stag, for instance, was a hopeless car in terms of its engine, for instance. They certainly made plenty of popular cars, and this is easily one of their most popular, so yeah, really pleased it's on the game. And yeah, so it's just good to have these kind of more basic sports cars on the game, rather, you know, than your 200 mile an hour massive engine kind of things that we're used to on Forza games before. So yeah, really pleased it's on the game, and I hope you guys enjoy driving it as much as I do. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.